Hello and welcome back to Ancorton Models TV. It's been a little while, but here's our latest how to build it video, and today it's the turn of the Ancorton Models Horse Stables kit in N-Gauge. So let's get started. Well, as always, it's best to get started by finding out what we've got in the pack. Right, a few bits there as well. So we have two troughs. Now the latest packs, these are actually 3D printed, I believe, so they're a little bit stronger because the round trough, water trough that I've got has basically got squashed and has fallen apart. So obviously won't be building that one up, but we can build the square one up, so we'll do that later. We also have obviously the big main sheet with everything all laser cut on there. It's a thin piece of ply, so it should cut very easily with a craft knife. And obviously we have our sheet of instructions from Ancorton, which are usually very good to deal with. So obviously I'll be following that, and then of course there's the general just bit of packaging on there as well. So I'll have a quick scan through the instructions. I think it'll be relatively easy to see how it goes together, and then we'll get stuck into it. Okay, so I've had a quick scan through and it looks pretty easy to assemble. The glue we're going to use is the good old Ducks with Tails rocket card glue. We've used it so many times in many of the other kits. It just, it does the job. So, first things first, we need to build up the actual building, and it suggests starting with the left-hand end, which is this piece here, and attaching it to the base. So, just cut out the base first, that's using a craft knife, and just cutting through the little tabs, and do the same with the end wall. So hopefully that will come free now. So what we need to make sure we do with this is make sure that the etched side of the wall, which is one with all the little board effects on there, which I'm hoping you can see on the camera, that needs to go on the outside so that you can see it, and we're going to glue it onto the base. So we're not putting it onto the end, we're putting it onto, and we can see on the base piece there is a line that goes around, which is where we're going to need to stick the components. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on the edge there. Don't want too much if you can help it, because obviously this is N-Gauge, so it's quite small. But luckily this rocket card glue will dry pretty quickly. So get that on there, get it all lined up. And same on the outside. It does recommend using a square to keep it upright, but another option you could use would be perhaps a little glass bottle. I've got some weathering powders there, just to hold it upright once you've got it all lined up. He says as it all falls apart. Stay. Yep, that's going to work. Right, so now it says to detach the front from the fret and carefully remove the doors with a sharp knife. Now, obviously I'm going to do that whilst those bits are drying. So we've got the front part here, and as you can see we've got the two little stable doors on there as well, and it's suggesting to actually remove those as well. So I have a feeling we're going to be sticking those back on in an open position later. Now it's probably going to be best to remove the doors from the fret, from the fret first, rather than the actual main wall, because you've then got a bit of strength in the fret itself, just to hold them in place. So just pop them to one side and cut out the main wall as well. Easy enough to do, like so. Right, and now once you've got that cut out, we now stick that onto the front, and again it should line up nicely with the front, like so. So let's put a little bit of glue on there. So a bit on the bottom and some down the edge where it's going to match the side that is already in place. So again, just take your time with it. There's no particular rush. Just make sure that everything's all nice and square and lined up as best you can. Now it is small, so it is fiddly, but that's okay, we can manage fiddly. We can manage small. We just take our time with it. So I'm just moving it a little bit out of the way from where the glue has spread out onto the cutting mat there, which is why it's always worthwhile having a cutting mat rather than doing it on the table straight away. So or have a piece of card or something down is always useful. Right, so we've got that one on, and now we need to do the same with the rear piece and the right hand end. So cut those out, and I have a feeling it's going to be easiest probably to put the rear piece on first and then the right hand end, because the right hand end will then tie everything together. So let's see about doing that one at a time. A bit of glue, remembering not to go overboard with the glue because we don't need to. Pop that in there. Like so, and then we just need to very carefully try and stick the end on. And if you can hear a dog yapping, that is next door's satanic dog. There are days it just doesn't stay quiet. So I apologise for that already. One of those that I've often thought if it actually barked like a dog, I wouldn't actually mind so much. But there we go. Anyway, that is the main building made up, obviously without the roof and the door, so I'm going to let that dry for a little bit so it's got a bit of strength with the glue first, before we attach the roof parts. Right, so now the main building has more or less dried, it's time to start looking at the roof. The roof is actually in two parts, so it's got two sides to it. So let's cut those out of the fret. And what we've got to make sure is obviously that the roof aligns properly at each end, and at the top of the apex is in the same place and it comes together nicely. So for this I'm going to glue the actual building and then put the roof pieces on, because I think that's going to be the easiest way, and plus then we might get a little bit of extra glue just down the insides of the corners of the building, which will obviously help give it a little bit of additional strength in those areas. As long as you get some on each apex end, you should be okay. So put one there, and one the other side. This is the point where you secretly hope that you've put enough glue on there that it's going to dry and actually stay in place. But we do there have basically the main building built up now. Obviously we need to fit the doors yet to the stables, and for those it actually gives you the option in the kit that you can have them either fully open, fully shut, or half open, with maybe the top part open or not. Because the doors, if you look very carefully, there is actually a tiny little gap about there, so you can actually cut the doors into the two, so you've got the half open stable door and the fully open stable door like that. It is easier to see in person, I admit, than it is on the camera, because it's quite fine and fiddly, so it's not really going to pick it up. To fit them, I'm going to recommend using some tweezers because they are small, but again I would make sure that the building itself is fully dried glue-wise before you attempt to fit the doors, because I think they're going to be very fiddly, and you will have a likelihood of perhaps moving the walls or something on the building if it's not fully dried. So have some patience and wait until that has dried before you fit the doors. Right, now as expected, fitting the doors to it was an absolute fiddle of a job, but they are on there, and hopefully you can see I've got a fully opened one and a half opened one on there. So in the main, that is essentially the kit built, but we do have, in this particular kit, we've got the water trough to make up, which is obviously quite simple to do. Cut the base out and stick the square bit to it, which is as simple as that. But in well, obviously the later packs now will have a 3D printed version of that, so you may or may not need to do that depending on when the kit was put together. So the only other piece on here is the big sheet of stone cobbles, and all you'll need to do with that is remove it from the fret, and the fret can then go in the bin, and then you just need to stick that to the front of your stable block, like so, and that essentially is then the kit built. I mean, obviously if you have your own ground cover that you prefer to use, you can use that and put the stable block onto it if you wanted to, but essentially that is the whole kit made up. Now to paint it, it gives you painting instructions within the main instruction pack, but generally it's easy enough to do because it's a wooden style stable block, and so you would paint it like perhaps a brown colour, and then the roof you could paint a black or a dark grey to basically make it look like roofing felt, and then obviously cobblestones, you know, stone colours. So the only other thing then would be to perhaps populate it with a couple of horses and maybe some other bits and pieces, but there we go, that's the stable block. So there we are, that's how to put together the Ancorton N-gauge stable block. It's a nice simple little kit which has taken me about an hour or so, give or take a bit of time for the glue to dry. It's laser cut, so it does go together really well, and as I've just said, you know, it'll work really well with some horses and some figures around it to create a nice little scene there. So anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, don't forget to give us a good old thumbs up. Also, do make sure that you hit the subscribe button as well, so that way you won't miss any of the other how to make it videos that I get around to doing. I've got quite a few more kits to build up in the next few weeks or so, so keep an eye out for those. So until next time, happy modelling!